I was catching up with a friend recently and he asked me, what would you say to your most just lost soul client? Someone who has had their whole lives seemingly just turned upside down. Everything they thought they knew and had planned for and been working towards just sort of got swept out from underneath them, seemingly overnight. Everything just feels like it's falling apart. You feel lost on your way. You feel like you're completely alone in this, and it's overwhelming to know where to start, trying to get through this, trying to make yourself feel better, knowing what to do to help yourself. And that's all of us, right? Nobody is immune to having felt that just total despair at some point of life, when just things aren't going to plan, you just feel completely lost and not sure where to turn. So these are 5 things that I would say to someone in that position. The first thing is that it's okay to let yourself feel whatever anger, despair, hopelessness, sadness, misery, uncertainty, whatever you feel about your situation. It's okay to put a name to it, to express it, speak it out loud, acknowledge how you're feeling and what's happened to you. That is the first step, because I'm someone who naturally looks for the positives and wants to sort of fast track to the solution and think, well, I can see why this has happened and actually long term this will be good for me. But I bypass the emotions that I'm feeling in that moment and not letting myself feel them and address them and deal with them. And so just squashing them doesn't actually resolve them. It doesn't get rid of them. It just suppresses them and makes things actually worse long term, rather than thinking that you're making yourself feel better by trying to fast forward to the solution. Being where you are and acknowledging where you are is the first step to getting through it and feeling better about it. So I would say feel those feelings and get them, express them somehow, whichever way works for you. Just make sure that you don't live there. Acknowledge them, but don't let them become part of who you are. The second point is to zoom out, zoom away from the problem, the circumstance, the person that you are trying to deal with in that moment. If you think about in nature, when a lion is chasing a zebra, that zebra's mind is purely focused in that moment on survival. All it needs to do is to escape from the lion. And so all of its energy, all the blood will rush to its legs so that it can run faster and get away. It's not thinking about the conversation it had with its friend yesterday or what it might eat for dinner later. Everything else just goes out the window and it's purely focused on that situation. And it really just, in that whole circumstance, enlarges in the zebra's mind to get it to move, to get a response from it, to ensure its survival. And it's the same thing that happens in people as well. Even when there is no imminent threat to your life, sure, you need to address these things and deal with this situation. You're actually not being threatened. Your life is not being threatened, but it feels like it because we have this natural primitive response for our survival. So the key is to zoom out and just tell yourself that, by focusing on other things, that actually I'm not in a survival situation right now. It's things like just becoming more more aware to the present moment. You think, what can I feel right now? Can I feel the breeze on my face? Well, subconsciously that will tell yourself, well, if I can tune into that and feel the breeze on my face, I can't be under any threat, because if I was under threat, I'd be purely focused on the threat. So getting into your environment, feeling what you're feeling physically, am I touching, can I wiggle my toes and feel that? Can I feel, my jumper on my skin? Can I feel maybe something nudges up against you? Get physically into your environment and focus on that. And that will help you zoom out and train your brain that you are not in survival, which will calm down the whole survival response that kicks in and helps you to just see that you're not in a life or death situation at that moment. It will help to give you some perspective back into your life, because you won't be totally consumed by this thing as you have been, and it will help you to feel a lot calmer and therefore better able to deal with the situation. The third thing is to remember that you are more than the things that happen to you. Often when something difficult happens, we can, as in the previous point, we can zoom in on that. We can hyper focus on it and also then make it mean something about us. We can say, we might start to over identify with it and say, oh, I'm such a loser that I've let this happen, or I was so stupid, to have got myself into this situation, and I can't believe that, and all of these things. And it's the names that you're calling yourself. You're saying, I am a loser, I am this, this only happens to me because of this aspect of my personality. Don't over identify with what has happened, because you are so much more than that. There is so much else going on in your life, so many other things that you have achieved that define who you are much better than this one thing or maybe a couple of things that have happened to you. And sometimes you can see this actually happen in people. They have a pattern. Something's happened to them once in their life. I think this is quite common with public speaking. I hear about this a lot, that, one situation happens maybe at school where they freeze. They have to speak in front of the class and they freeze, and, they feel really embarrassed that this has happened. And so they develop the story in their mind, I'm really bad at public speaking. This is who I am. I have decided based on this one experience that this is me now forever. And they are over-identifying with that one experience. And it might be that nobody in that class ever remembers that they lost their words, or, didn't make any sense in their point, or just completely froze. But they have taken that to mean something, and it carries on through their life. So don't over-identify. Number 4 is to remember that you don't need to have all the answers right now. I think particularly when it feels like the rug has been swept out from beneath you, it can feel really daunting. You thought you had a plan, you thought you knew where you were going in life, and you built up a picture of what you probably could expect from that plan. So when things get shaken up unexpectedly and in lots of different areas of life, it's really bewildering, and you do feel lost, and you don't know what's coming next. And that is normal, because you will be doing something that you haven't experienced before. You will be doing something entirely new. It's like going to a whole different destination. You don't know what that's going to look like. You don't know what the journey will be like. You don't know what you're going to see along the way. You don't know what you're going to find when you get to that end point either. It's completely normal and to be expected. You are standing at the edge of something that you don't recognize yet, because you have never walked that path before. And that's an exciting thing, or it can be an exciting thing. It can be an opportunity for change and growth. And what you can do is remember, there are many things in your past that at one point you didn't think that you could get through it, or you didn't know how you were going to achieve it. So you might not have all the answers now, but what you do have is certainty that you are capable of making it through a challenge. It might have been at school and thinking, how am I ever going to pass these exams? I just cannot. It's so all-encompassing. There's so much to do. It feels so overwhelming. I'm stressed. I don't know how I'm going to get through this. And yet you do. And then you think, oh, well, how am I ever going to get a job once I've, left school or graduated? How am I ever going to get this experience? Who's going to take a chance on me? And yet you do. You make it through. And you can have that. You've proved it to yourself already. You have that story that you can lean back on. You're not trying to make it up in your head. It's already happened. You know that you have the capability to get through things, to make a success of different things, to learn, to develop, to grow. So why can't you do the same? Why would this be any different? It's just a new challenge, a new area to explore, a new place to develop in your life. Number 5 is to remember that you are not starting over. You are not starting from scratch. You're not going backwards. You are starting from where you are now, with all the experience that you've developed, with all the lessons that you've learned, all the challenges you've faced, all the successes that you've had. You are starting from such a solid foundation that is what's going to get you to your next level. So many people say to me, I feel like, I'm going backwards. I'm having to start over, start again. Well, what does that mean to you? If you actually had to think, what does starting again look like? Is that going back to when you were a baby and you didn't know how to walk or talk? No, it's not that, is it? You already know how to do that. So you're not starting over in that sense. You're not just starting out school and you might know how to walk and talk a bit, but you don't have the social skills yet. You don't have many friends maybe. You're not starting from that point either. So what point do you actually think you might be going back to? You're not going back to anything. You are purely building from where you are, and everything that has happened to you in your life and you've accomplished and that you've achieved from right now. You have such a solid foundation to work from, and it can only improve from there. It's never going backwards, always forwards. So those are the 5 things that I would say to someone feeling lost, feeling confused, and not sure what to do. It's important to actually help yourself feel okay with where you are, because if you don't feel okay, you are just trying to you're trying to push through and solve something through stress and force. If you can just recenter, recalibrate, and think, this is okay, this is part of the process, I have my capabilities, this doesn't define who I am, I have so much else going on in my life, I can zoom out of this problem, this isn't the only thing that's happening to me right now. If you can regain some of that perspective, it will really help you to feel better and to address the situations that you're dealing with in a much calmer and more productive way.